This is actually their first, this is their first project. I get it. I'll take that. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you have the floor for 3 minutes.
Okay, great. Hello everyone, my name is Matthew Clark. I'm with L4 Incorporated. We are a local residential and mixed-use developer in the Washington, D.C. area. We've been in this market for about 30 years. We are also the developer of the residential portion of Gateway Market, which is currently under construction at the intersection of 4th and 4th. I'm sure many of you are aware of it. This is the same project where it was announced last week that a Trader Joe's would be coming to this ANC, which is fantastic news, and we have Eaton's to thank for that. And that's also going to be the future home of this ANC. So that will be happening. We'll be delivering in late spring, early summer. So in advance of that, I'll let you be back in here presenting the community room, which I think you guys would be very pleased with. So this project, just to give a little bit of history, this is, to orient everybody, this is at 500 and 530 Moore Street, which is about 2 blocks south of the actual market in the Union Market area. The building that I was just talking about is right here. And again, that's the project that we're currently under construction right now. A little bit of project history. We filed for our consolidated PUD in the earlier part of this year, and soon thereafter we met with Commissioner Lewis and have kept her apprised of the progress on the project. And so we presented last week to the single member district, and now we're here today to hopefully have the ANC's support. So just a quick kind of overview. It's roughly 270 apartment units with about 20,000 square feet of ground level retail. You can see some of the renderings, which, I'm sorry, I need to introduce my colleague. This is Dennis Connors, he's with SKNI. Yes. So what you're seeing before you right now is an updated facade. We got some preliminary feedback from the zoning commission that they wanted the building to be a touch more contextual, and we think with this enhanced facade design, it fits a little bit better with the surrounding context and the historic nature of the surrounding Union Market area. One of the things I'd like to point out, which I think is perhaps one of the most kind of nuanced, interesting things about this project, is very early on in the project when we met with the Office of Planning, they said, okay, you guys have just submitted your PUD for this site right here, and Gallaudet and JPG have just submitted a PUD for this entire, pretty much this entire block with the exception of this building. Why don't you guys get together, put your heads together, and try to figure out how your two projects can coordinate together and really be an example of good urban planning. And what that solution ended up looking like, is for the better part of a year, we've been trying to figure out how we can build a service alley through our site, which in the future will then be extended by when these projects develop here. And the reason why this is important is because what it means is, well into the future, when these buildings develop eventually, and again, those are the JVG and Gallaudet project, they'll be able to do all of their loading through this service alley, which means that you're not going to need curb cuts all over this block. And it's very rare in an urban setting to have the opportunity to create a private alley. This is kind of one of the first times this has happened because of the challenges of different ownership. And so we're really excited about this. It also gives us an opportunity to connect our garages, which means that you could have maybe 3 or 4 curb cuts tops for this entire block. which is certainly important for pedestrian safety, and it greatly reduces the number of pedestrian and vehicular conflicts. That's something that we're very pleased with. Other community benefits, we're going to be committing to LEED Gold for the building. We're going to be doing enhanced streetscape. There are guidelines that are being developed and finalized right now. That's an effort that's been led by Eden's with the Office of Planning and the District Department of Transportation. And so we will be incorporating those enhanced streetscape principles into the project. A part of that will be depth space design principles, which our landscape architects are actually obligated to do, which is certainly important considering the proximity to Gallaudet. Am I still on time? You've got 30 seconds. Okay. Affordable housing. Our initial conversation with Commissioner Lewis, we offered 8% of the units as affordable housing, with 20% of those at 50% AMI and 80% of those at 80% AMI. Commissioner Lewis suggested we go back and find an opportunity to increase that, so we went back to the drawing board and we doubled the number of 50% affordable units. So we would like to offer an 8% set aside with 40% at 50% AMI and remaining 60 at 80%. So.
Can you say those one more time?
8% set aside. 40% of that set aside is at 50% AMI. So that's the deeper level of affordability. And the remaining 60% at 80% AMI.
And then we're only required to do 80%.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, that's actually time, so that's
Yeah.
a great segue. Commissioner Lewis has go ahead.
Okay, so excuse me having something in my mouth. The community is supporting this project. One thing they did not get to touch upon, however, is the fact that we call it Little Tavern. Little Tavern is on their site, and the plan is to move Little Tavern somewhere within. Can I give him a minute to discuss
Yes.
the plan?
So the current subway is a former Little Tavern, and Elcor certainly acknowledges the interest that the community has in preserving this asset to the neighborhood. It was one of the earlier chain restaurants in the area that's no longer functioning, but the building itself was an old Little Tavern building, and so under the guidance of the Historic Planning Office and the Office of Planning, we've been having conversations with our neighbors and other folks in the market on finding a new permanent home for the Little Tavern. We think that we have a high degree of confidence that we'll be able to find a new location for the Little Tavern building that will have a use that will continue to be open to the public. However, in a location that perhaps is a little bit more appropriate for it, considering that Florida Avenue small area plan calls for this to be high-rise development. We actually met with the historic folks yesterday to talk about this, and they're supportive of our continuing efforts to find a long-term solution.
Okay, so having said all of that, the community is supporting the project with the thought process that Little Tavern will stay. There's only 3 left in the city, and they're all historic, that they will stay and will be open to the public.
Thank you,
So I'm not-
Commissioner Lee.
So you're gonna move it like they did down on M Street?
The reason why it needs to be moved, because.
No, that's what I said, it's gonna be moved. The building's gonna be lifted up and moved. That's
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I know why, because I know.
It's a little bit of context with it too, because the residents want it to stay, but the size of it did not make sense with the scale of what is needed for the area or recommended, which is why they're moving it.
Any other, was that your question?
That was the question.
Any other discussion or questions from staff members?
What's the height of the project? Same question about the glazing.
Sure.
And also, just remind me of where you are in the zoning commission process. It's been a while since I've seen this.
Yes, we have our set down, or we were set down for public hearing, but we have not filed yet for our zoning hearing date. We want to come here first.
We don't have a zoning commission hearing. as of yet, because we have not refiled the drawings after addressing some of the comments from the setback report back in December.
Same concern, I'd like to,
So height of the building is 110 feet tall. It's
Okay.
at the top of the parapet, the guardrail on the roof. This is a very interesting project because it's 10 stories. It has very tall ceilings. Any developer could probably normally fit in 11 or 12 stories on the site, but the higher ceilings allows this greater use of retail space. And with retail, the greater height, the more successful that retail is, so the chances of vacancy are marginalized. As you can see, there is a tower element here, which will not exceed 130 feet tall. But in general, the height with the building plus the penthouse is roughly around 124 feet to the occupiable penthouse, and then another bit of mechanical on that. So total height of the building is less than 130 feet, but the main roof is at 100. And glazing, another feature that we improved upon is we've heavily Muntonized the windows, which give it a more residential feel.
can you explain for what Muntins are,
Sure.
in case there's someone that
The
doesn't
divisions
understand?
in the windows, like an old warehouse style design, and that adds a lot more context to the building. I'm sure that will help address that concern of the birds.
Because we're not gonna have long, uninterrupted
Yeah, it won't be
spaces
expansive
of clear glazing.
of clear glazing.
Thank you. I have two questions. You've already answered my 4 little questions, and thank you for the answer and the improvements. It's great to hear that's happening. My question's about you mentioned the connected garages, and my other question's about the retail. So with the connected garages, I saw one of your posters said 160 to 250 spaces, or I think you said about 270 units.
Yes.
So my first question is, is that range of parking spaces, is that dedicated to your building, or is that being shared with one of those other connected
It
garages?
would be the excess amount, that range we are calling for, because right now, kind of the status of the existing surface parking lot, we're not really sure when that's gonna be taken offline, and we think we need to replace that parking. So any excess parking would be to the public for retail. So,
I think my question though is, so you have 270 units.
Right.
Assume everyone has a car, you have a maximum of 245 spaces, right?
right,
Are
but,
all of those spaces dedicated to this building? Or
So-
are they shared with one of the other
right, so
buildings?
if we had 270 units, 0.6, what's 270 times 0.6? Yeah, for everybody.
I know,
180.
That many parking spaces would be for residential, and the rest would be for retail. So our parking ratio would be roughly, so 0.6 parking spaces per unit, because most of our renters,
I think the question is, and it's probably coming up because other developers are trying to rent each other's spaces down there. So it's just for your project, correct? You
yes,
guys?
yes. That was a simple question that I.
No.
Sorry.
That's because we've had others who are trying not to have parking, but that's not.
Oh, that is for ours, this is a standalone, and we're trying to, quote, future-proof the building by trying to have the garages line up, and like I said, sharing this parking entrance. So even though the parking entrance is located on our site, this building up here will, the residents will basically access it and hang away from the garage.
It was great to do some mental math for y'all. My second question was about retail. So you said 20,000 square feet of retail. Is that all Trader Joe's, or is that?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
No, that's the previous project. There's an undetermined use for the retail on this site this time. It's likely a restaurant or something like that.
Right. Yes, I'm sorry. The Trader Joe's that was announced is here, and that's just another project we're doing. I just thought as an update to the ANC, I would mention that. This here, just as far as timeline, we would maybe commence construction if our approvals, if everything goes according to plan, early part of 2018, which means that we're delivering in middle of 2020.
And am I correct in saying that you guys stated JBG